Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Trophy Room Reviews Horizon Forbidden West. I am your host, Joseph, aka Mr. Badbit, and alongside me, the managing editor over at Console Creatures, Bobby. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to do this with you.
Of course, and I want to thank you for coming in last minute and saving my butt because you are the one that played Horizon Forbidden West. I've got a ton of questions for you because just like everybody else, we are so excited to get our hands on Horizon Forbidden West. This is something we've been waiting for since it's been announced, since the PlayStation 5 has been revealed. This is PlayStation's first true flagship since Miles Morales. This is their first big budget game. So let's get right into it. Uh, First and foremost, there is no spoilers. If you're on the video version, what you're looking at is all the state of play and promotional material. So there's nothing to get spoiled here. We're going to get very surface level. And what we're going to do is just tell you where it's improved or maybe where it falls short from the original. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the story of Horizon Forbidden West. Because the one thing that I've been hearing about this game, Bobby, is a lot of people alluded to The Witcher 3 in scope when it comes to the world and when it comes to the story of this game. And as much as I loved the original Horizon, I know that there was some pacing issues, whether it was in a little bit of the beginning and a little bit of the middle, but really to me, I loved it wholeheartedly. Is this story an improvement in terms of pacing? What are your overall thoughts on it?
I mean, the problem with the first game was, they threw a lot at you at the beginning, I thought, and that's kind of where it kind of led everyone astray. In the
Mhm.
sequel, what I've seen and, what I've experienced is it's more fleshed out. You're getting, that you get to follow your own pace. So if you want to, go for the critical path, you can follow the critical path. But if you want to go to the side quests, they're a lot more interesting this time. And that's what I think is one of the biggest changes they've had in the sequel. A lot of the
Mm,
side quests this time, they're more of, I would say, like the Tales of Tsushima or the God of War side quests. Like a lot of them play into the main arc, and
nice.
that's a big improvement. I mean, that kind of starts introducing secondary characters that you'll see later down the line, and people who Aloy starts to trust and build relationship with, and
That's awesome.
that's a big change for this series, and that's
Yeah.
where I think Gorilla's improved a lot. They took a lot of feedback from the first game, and you can see it. You can see within the first 2 hours, you're starting to see these side quests unlocked that not only give Aloy new relationships, she gets new weapons, she unlocks new traps, new everything. Everything is unlocked in a natural
Nice.
way. Like you're meeting these people in these new cities, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Hey, here I'll scratch your back, you'll scratch mine.
Now,
Here's
are
what I can
these
do for you."
quests kind of like fetch questy? Because that's what a lot of complaints on the original ones was just like these quests aren't memorable, not
Right.
just because some of the characters are a little bland, but because what I'm doing isn't that interesting. Has that changed with this game?
There are still a couple,
Hmm.
but the reward is worth it. Like,
Okay.
Guerrilla promised, better rewards this time, and I have only done, I don't know, I maybe three or four really tedious fetch quests this time, but like the result was worth it. I mean, I ended up getting great armor. I got,
Yeah.
all this experience just getting to the place where I needed to go. On the way there, you're racking up new sights, new vistas. You're seeing the world, but it's not as tedious, and that's kind of why I think the biggest improvement is just it's the structure. Everything's been
Yeah.
heightened.
That's awesome. And just to go off the main story for what you experienced thus far, um, has that have they also listened there in terms of how the story's structured? Again, because I don't see the pacing issues, but from what I hear, it's like they didn't like when they were kid at Ellie, or people thought like the middle was kind of subdued.
Right?
Um, from what you've experienced thus far, are you getting are you feeling like it's being paced well?
Yeah. This
Nice.
from the opening moments, it picks right up. You don't really get they don't hold your hand right into the beginning. You start with Aloy 6 months down the line. She's in the middle of a mission, and it's not like she's trying to build a bow or get some
Yeah.
armor. She's trying to find out what's causing the red blight to start taking over the land, and,
Yeah.
and she's really worried. And her
Mm,
character is so you're starting to see the wear on her mind. She's starting to get she's very irksome. She's quick to anger.
Mm.
She's a lot more invested in this because who she is in the story
Yeah.
is she's technically the savior, and that holds a toll on her, and you start to see unravel her from the
And
beginning.
let's talk about the side characters just quickly without naming we know Erend and whatnot, but like the one other thing was like in the first game we knew Aloy. They did a great
Right.
job of telling that story. When it comes to the side characters, how are the facial animations to them, their animations in general, and do they serve up to be not, of course, as memorable as Aloy, but a worthy improvement on the original?
100%. You can see the improvement in the technology.
Nice.
I can't confirm it. Like, I just can't remember if it's still the same engine that's powering the game, but it looks and feels a lot more authentic to the characters. They don't have that robotic animation. I know that was
Yeah.
a big concern. People just felt too like an AI, and but
Yeah.
no, it's a lot better. The characters, of course, like they feel like realized people, and you can see that through their
Mm,
animations, the way they talk, they hold their bodies. Like there is a lot of work that went in behind the scenes to improve all these characters.
that's awesome. Now let's get to what the people really came here for. They came here for combat. I love Horizon's combat, and again, I'm very biased here. Horizon's one of
Right.
my favorite games of all time. So, you know, I expect range combat to still be solid, but I think the big question here is melee combat because as much as I loved Horizon's combat, melee was incredibly simplistic.
It was, and that's what one of the things that really turned me off in the first game is it
Yeah,
was just kind of like a mash the button and kind of hope you survive.
yeah.
In the sequel, it's a lot better. Like you don't start off with a lot. You still have your basic, heavy and light attacks, but as you start leveling up, getting skill points, you start unlocking combos, you start unlocking modifiers. It feels like they've taken every criticism about the battle system and just finessed it just a little bit. It's been fine tuned. It's not a
Mm,
massive improvement, but it's enough to service the story. It feels natural to the character. There's still heavy moments where you can feel her animation. They're still heavy when she hits,
mm.
and that's okay. But in the general sense, like I found it a lot more fluid. It's easier to combo with ranged traps. There's a couple of new skills and abilities that really make her like a force to reckon with. And
Is that does that like when we're taking a look at the trees,
right,
is it more of an in-depth, RPG system, like
well,
somewhat of
oh yeah.
like a Dragon Age? Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily Dragon Age. There are a lot more skills. There's 6 trees this time.
Oh wow.
Geez, you get skill points pretty fast. Like by the first 4 or 5 hours, I already had like 15, 20 points stacked into
Oh
my
wow.
into my my character. But as I was going through the skill tree, like you start unlocking really good melee skills pretty early, and then you can start unlocking your Valor Surge, which is like the super attack,
Hmm.
which give her like that little that it's like a super saiyan thing. She powers up and she gets stronger, and she can do these things to these machines where I don't ever expect any other character to do what she can do. But just the system itself, it feels eons better. That's the only way I can
That's
really describe it.
awesome.
It is on par with, I would say, God of War's combat, and I love God of War's combat. It's
Wow.
one of my
Okay.
highlights.
Okay. So let's talk about then the variety when we're fighting. The one other criticism of Horizon is when you're fighting
Right.
humans, there is, it's easy, just shoot in the head and they're done. Right? They were way too simple to kind of engage
Right.
with and dispatch. How has that improved? I think that was the one thing that I was the most optimistic when I saw
Right.
the state of play.
So I can't like the thing is I didn't really revisit the first game as much as I wanted to before this review, so I
Mhm.
can't remember everything. But in terms of the sequel, there are enemies who have armor plates. You can't
Mm.
just one shot kill them anymore. Like their head has armor, and you have to scan it with your focus and see where all the enemies' weak points are. And sometimes the arrow just doesn't cut it. You have to start looking into your arsenal and see what else could assist in getting these people down. The
Mm.
Tenkath, the new tribe, they're brutal and bad to fight, and they'll gang up on you when you're in one on one. You'll start seeing them surround you, And when they
Oh
do
wow.
that, your only options are to get out of the way and start
Now, is
using
it
your
kind of
focus.
like Assassin's Creed esque, where it's like there's 9 guys that surround you, but there's only like maybe 1 or 2 that kind of try to rope and dope you? Um,
I
or
wouldn't say
are
it
they?
was that like that. It
Mhm.
was it's a lot more balanced than that because that's
Okay.
just overkill. But like I would be facing off with like a tribe clansman who's in charge of a camp, and him and 2 other guys would gang up on me.
Mm,
And that's kind of where that's I thought it was enough because 3 people in that scenario, like they're strong, like they're not just low level, you
yeah.
know, cannon fodder.
Yeah.
But you have to start using your tools. I mean, you could cheese the first game a lot.
Yeah.
Everything
A
you could
lot.
do is cheese. In this game here, if you're not using your focus to scan body parts, see what every machine's weakness is, and use it, you're not going to survive very long in this game. There's only
Mm,
so much combat can do, right? You have to start
yeah.
planning, being strategic.
That's awesome.
Everything
Now let's
about
get
it is
to
really good.
the thing that everybody wants to talk about: the machines.
Oof.
Fighting them, the variety. We've seen a whole lot. I saw like a robot monkey in the trees. Of course we saw the tremor tusk. How is it, man? What was your favorite enemy to kind of dispatch? What was the improvements there that you felt?
There's one enemy within the first hour that I think was a standout for me, just because it plays into the narrative, right? Like Aloy's on this mission and she encounters this. If you remember Final Fantasy VII, if you ever played, they had like that large giant serpent. I think it was.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there's like
Mhm.
a snake-like machine that looks just like that, and it's stalking through the area that we were trying to get through this mission, and keeps popping its head up. And Aloy is sensing that it's like we can't wait too long. We have to either get this mission done now, or we're gonna have to face this thing. And it's pretty much ends where, as you would expect, right? They end up
Wow.
getting jumped by this snake, and you have to fight it as it's going from like tent pole to tent pole, and it's throwing boulders at you, and you have to start looking with your focus. That's where I think the biggest improvement with the machines are is they're a lot more they're versatile. Like there's a lot more layers to them this time. You
Mm.
can knock off pieces to them, and that's great. But what do you do with those pieces? You can't just let them go flying. Like there's bits you pick up. You can start crafting electrical arrows that build into their weaknesses from
Like on the spot.
exactly.
Oh wow.
It's a lot more intuitive. Like there's a lot of it's more strategic. Like there's
Mm.
just so many more viable options than button mashing this time and throwing arrows and crafting them on the fly. You should be using your whole arsenal against these machines.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So
sorry. In terms of like
yeah,
just like there's so many more like I guess you could say there's different like there's mammal
variations.
variations. There's mammals under there's amphibious ones. There's like everything you can think of. They've added so many variations of these machines. Like you can find maybe 5 or 10 different variations of like the stalker,
Mm.
and they've improved on every single one of them. They look fantastic.
That's awesome. And I love what you said when it comes to like, because the original game was just like, yeah, just huck and chuck your arrows at it, break the armor, get your armor piercing. Then when the armor piercing's gone, just, shoot at them with the flame or whatnot.
Exactly.
The one thing that I saw in the previews as well was like using their abilities against them.
Yep.
Like I saw one of the like raptors has like this poisonous gas, and you actually, if you get the critical shot at that point, the gas just bursts and it starts just
Exactly.
going all over the place.
Exactly. So yeah, that falls into a lot of them. So like I that was a bristleback. So bristleback, they're like bulls,
Yeah.
and my first encounter of them was within a quarry where Aloy has to clear out the quarry just to get this tribe through the bridge to get to their job site. And to fight these things, the first time I cheesed it. Obviously, I mean I had to try and see what I could just get out of there. But then Aloy's like, what if I they have poison on their backs? Why don't if I break those off and then use them against them? And then she does is she starts shooting the arrows at those, and
Mm,
they start building a meter that goes around her arrows. And what it does is basically once it gets filled, it explodes, like you said, and it causes area of effect damage, and it basically clears the area a lot more simple than having to go in there and just take them out physically.
that's awesome. I really can't wait to see how the combat shakes out for me personally, because what you're saying has me so excited. Because yeah, I want it to be a little bit more strategic, and when it comes to the combat, it also kind of bleeds into the level design
Right.
as well. Because I felt like sometimes in Horizon I didn't get the chance to plot out my attacks with my traps, or didn't get to land
Right.
the mine just where I wanted to or wanted it to. How does, when you're fighting a big monster or going into a abandoned camp, how does the level design around you kind of lend itself?
It's it's familiar. Like you, if
Okay.
you did the first game, like there are still those stealth sections where you go through the grass. There is a lot more verticality this time, just because you
Mm,
get like the glider, and you can start planning vertically this time. So if you want to lay a trap and then go up, use your pullcaster just to jump up into the air, and you can do range attacks from the air now. And then
mm.
you've seen it. I think they showed it in the the state of plays where she like pulls casts up into the air, fires a bunch of bomb arrows, and then lands safely away, and then sees the machine fall into her trap. So there's a lot more. It's a bigger playground this time. There's just a
Nice.
lot. It's the versatility of the game. Like it gives you the tools to be a kid and just see what connects and what toys break.
That's awesome. Now let's get into the open world. Um, I could already imagine the headlines.
Yeah,
This game, it has an open world. There's some climbing. So how Breath of the Wild is it, man?
it's a 10 out of 10 on the Breath of the Wild. It
Nice.
is PlayStation's Breath of the Wild. But in all honesty, no. It's it feels more lived in. The
Okay.
world, like the settlements, they feel like there's inhabitants. Like you're walking through the world, and there's always something to look at. Not in terms of battles or anything, but there's like maybe a nice vista to your left as you're walking through a couple valleys,
Mm,
and
mm.
there's campments where you can see people just huddling together, surviving, and they're just talking, and you can walk through them, and you can listen to what they're saying, and it basically keeps you busy, but in a good way. Like there's not
Mm.
a over like there's not a burden of going to get that treasure chest like some of
Right.
the Assassin's Creed maps. Like I don't know if you remember Assassin's Creed
Yeah.
Unity. That map gave me anxiety, but this one here, it's more natural. Like you're going to do an errand. It is basically like it's a submission, so it's not very important. It's like a fetch quest, but it basically, yeah, like you get to these areas, you complete these errands for people, but you're learning about the world, like some of the tribes that live in these pockets around the map, and it's built in a way that feels natural to the story because you're
Nice.
going out west, right? So basically your whole map starts in the east, and then you start moving to the west, so you start seeing more and more as you're going west, and it really builds on that, going to that forbidden land.
That reminds me of Witcher in a lot of ways, where
Yeah,
like you're looking at this war zone, and then just not even a mile ahead of you, you see these people that are survivors,
yeah,
and people that are
exactly,
wondering, hey, can we pass this ravine to get to safety, and trying to
exactly.
talk to the guard and weasel your way in. Is that the similarities that I'm striking true?
They're very similar in that regard.
Mm,
I wouldn't say they're on par. I mean, they I feel like they're inspired by it. I mean, it's hard not to see that after
yeah,
playing both games, but it does offer to that crowd if that's what you're looking for. It
nice.
make yeah it basically, yeah, if you want, you can make the game what you want. So if you want more of a Witcher style thing, you can do that. If you want to do just a critical game right to the end, you don't have to worry about learning about the world. You can just find out how the blight
Mm,
began and ended. You can just
yeah. Feel like I'm gonna get lost in it because I love that, like, yeah, I'm walking around and I'm just like I'm overhearing something from someone, you know. The one thing that I do love in a good old
yeah.
open world game is when I see a point, if I see a mountain, a peak even, I want to climb it.
Oh
And God forbid it rains in said game that we were just alluding to a while ago.
yeah.
How is the traversal through this world?
I know that there was talks of when this game was released, or announced that it would be like a Breath of the Wild climate. And I know I wish it really was, but it isn't.
Mm,
Guerrilla instead has done this thing where it's a streamlined path. So like we've seen in the state of play where it's got the guided yellow
right.
cautionary, and I love it. I really think it adds to the character, right? Because she's living in this world where all this technology that's lost is giving her the second chance to save her people. So you see this path that paints how to get to over up and over the mountains, and it feels natural. The climbing's been improved to the point where there's not a lot of air to follow. There's not a lot of way just fall.
Yeah.
It
Is it kind of like Ghost of Tsushima in a way where it kind of feels like, yeah, you can't climb every mountain, but where you get that trail, it kind of feels like an obstacle course to the top of the mountain.
exactly. So yeah, it's
Okay.
kind of like it is like so when if you've ever done like a rock, those rock climbing mountains, those
Yeah.
ones you do at the gyms. It's got that path, so you can kind of see where the path is going. It's built into the systems. Like the world,
Nice.
just it's natural to the point where it makes sense.
All right. Awesome. That's what I want to hear. This sounds like everything that I was expecting this game to be is what it is. And listen, I would talk to you about like, oh, the graphics, is it pretty?
Yeah.
But we've seen it. It looks beautiful. It looks astounding. It sounds incredible. And the art style is awesome as well. If I'm a PlayStation 5 owner though, is this because we've been kind of it's also played on the PS4. Is this a true next gen game? Does this feel like a true next gen game?
In one word, yes. I
Okay.
honestly think it feels like a tentpole game for the PlayStation 5. It is a showpiece. And the only reason I say that is I've played it. I mean, I know what they've done with it, right? I had
Yeah.
my doubts, right? Because it's a cross gen game, and we've seen how some of those games can look. And I'm not saying they're bad,
Right.
but
Because Miles Morales is still beautiful, but like I didn't see the visual jump going for 4 to 5.
it was very limited. I thought, and I think it was
Yeah.
more just character textures and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But this game here, there's just it. It feels like it wasn't developed together. Like it feels like they're a separate game. Like they're obviously the same game, but like
Right.
they didn't have the same designs, like or decisions of how to make the game. Like this
Yeah.
is a PlayStation 5 game, this is a PlayStation 4 game. This is what you'll get on this system, and this is what you're getting on a brand new console that has all these new improvements, right? So like
Mm.
they're two separate games, I think. Like
Okay.
they feel that different. Like just
Wow.
I can't say anything else about it. It is a tentpole game. I
That's
savor the
awesome,
game.
dude.
Let's put it. I savor. I'm savoring it right now. I want to go back and play just because I love getting lost. I love the photo mode. I've
Yeah.
been taking photos of everything just because it's so stunning.
Wow. And last but not leastly, DualSense. We're huge stands here at the trophy room
My
of
favorite thing.
DualSense.
My
Yeah.
favorite thing in the world.
Yes.
Yes, it makes it so immersive. Like I
That's
called
what
it
I
a
want to hear.
dance, right? Like you're pulling the drawstring and you're hearing the sound of your controller, and it just pairs so well with the music that it feels like you're actually Aloy, right? That the way her footsteps resonate in the control, or just the sounds of the machines when you're tackling them with your spear, you hear it so clear in the controller, and it pairs with the haptics to the point where it's a cannot miss experience. Like it adds
Wow.
a level of immersion I've never felt before.
Is this Astrobot level good?
I thought it was. I mean, I think that is the pinnacle of DualSense controller, right? Like
Yeah.
that
Is it even dethroning Astro, or you're like, no, let's not
no,
get that crazy?
the only one that can dethrone Astro is the next Astro game, I think. But
Fair enough.
but
Fair
yeah,
enough.
for this one here, it's on par with Returnal for me. I love Returnal's
Yeah. Same.
DualSense implementation. It was on par with that.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean everything about it. Like just listen to if when you're playing, listen to how the controller reacts. So if you're talking to someone in the settlements, you hear the crowds, like you hear
Oh
them
wow.
gossiping in the controller. It surrounds my room. Like that 3D audio really helps sell this world.
Excellent. Now, we usually have a review score system for this game. I don't want to sound like a complete stan, but we usually do it through trophy levels.
Right.
So, is this an avoid? Is this a bronze? Is this a silver trophy, a gold trophy, or of course the platinum? You must have this right here, right now. Go pay that 60, go pay that 70
Right.
for this game.
I'm gonna give it a platinum.
There you go.
It's a game that you want to play. It's not something that it doesn't feel like a hobby or a chore. Like it's a game you want to get lost in. You want to learn more about these characters. You want to learn
Awesome.
more about this world, how you can take down these monsters that are invading and destroying everything you know. And it is a platinum level game to me. There's nothing I necessarily find negative about it. There's
Mhm.
very small things that I just didn't like. Like there's a couple of puzzles that kind of just threw me off.
But those are just like, it
That's
doesn't take
nothing.
away from the overall
It
experience.
doesn't bring the experience down. It's frustrating, but once you solve it, it's just like, okay, well, now I get to the next story beat and I can learn what happens next. And
Nice.
it serves the purpose.
Awesome. Awesome. That said, that has been the Trophy Room Reviews Horizon Forbidden West. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on, for talking to me about Horizon. Where can people find you on the Twitter space and your website, my good sir?
Twitter is just B Pashalitis. I mean, if you can link it in the,
Of course, it's
in the
in the
description, my,
description
my
right
name
now.
is hard to spell, so a lot of people get it wrong. So it's
Yeah.
Pashalitis, which is Greek. But you can find me on Twitter. Consolecreatures.com is my website. We are Canadian media outlets, so we kind of just focus on Canadian news, a lot of the world news, obviously, but we kind of focus on just honest opinions and reviews and trying to keep it as neutral as possible. We really
Nice.
love video games.
Same.
That's
Same.
our mission is just talk about games.
Yeah, yeah. And Bobby, thank you all so much. And you can find him and his website, all the links down below in the description. And so, with all that said, and with all that out of the way, everybody, if you like this video, please hit like, share, subscribe. It really does help us out, grows this channel and this big, beautiful family that we call home. And make sure you tune into the Trophy Room each and every Thursday, where me and my best friend Kyle talk about the latest, the greatest in all things PlayStation. So, with all that said, and with all that out of the way, keep your wits about you, keep hunting, and keep playing PlayStation. See you guys.